Building your thermal compost pile. Start by measuring out two 1.5 by 1.5 meter squares on the ground. You can mark these with wooden or metal pegs. You will build your compost pile in the first 1.5 meter by 1.5 meter square. You will use the second square to turn your pile when it is ready for turning. See our video on our YouTube channel about how and when to turn your compost pile. Remember, all materials must be thoroughly soaked in water before being added to the pile. Green material, brown material, woody material, and manure must all be thoroughly soaked before being added to the pile, as water is an important element in the thermal decomposition of the pile. Start your pile with a layer of brown or green organic material. Here we are starting with a layer of brown material. When you start each layer, carefully arrange the materials to make sure that you are maintaining your corners and your edges. Build up the corners and the edges of each section before adding to the middle. Be sure to remove any inorganic material you find in your pile. Inorganic material cannot be composted and is not healthy for your plants. You may use whatever type of organic materials you have available to you. Remember that the more diverse your materials, the more biodiversity you will be introducing into the soil. Remember that brown materials are materials that are harvested when they are brown and have finished their life cycle. When your first layer has reached a little bit above wrist level, go ahead and add your next organic material. In our case, we started with brown material, so we will now be adding green material. Green materials are materials that are harvested when they are green and have the sugars locked inside. If they turn brown later, they are still considered green material because they were harvested when they were green. Once your second layer has reached the level of your wrist, go ahead and add your first wheelbarrow of manure. If you are using cow manure, you will be using 8 wheelbarrows full of cow manure. If you are using chicken manure, you will use only 5 wheelbarrows, as the nitrogen content in chicken manure is much higher than in cow manure. You will then continue to alternate your layers: brown organic material, green organic material, and manure, with some woody materials thrown into the mix to create room for aeration. Also, to ensure that your pile is properly aerated, do not lean on or press it down as you are building it. Remember that all materials must be thoroughly soaked in water before being added to the pile. Be monitoring the height of your compost pile with a measuring tape. You want it to be 1.5 meters high. If your pile is only waist high, it is not tall enough. It must be at least 1.5 meters high by 1.5 meters wide by 1.5 meters long in order to generate the heat that is necessary to kill bad weed seeds, pathogens, and bacteria that are in the pile, and to create a fertilizer that will be healthy for your fields. Always be sure that your final layer is a layer of green or brown material. Do not leave the manure on top as your top layer. The manure needs to be on the inside of the pile to do its work effectively. Your pile is now finished and ready to begin its work of aerobic decomposition. Insert a long metal rod that will reach to the center of the pile so that you can monitor the temperature to know when to turn. Once your dipstick is too hot to hold onto, you will do your first turn. This should happen in 2 to 3 days. See our video on turning your compost pile for more details on how and when to turn.